tabloids across the globe. I am Hugh Hewitt, joined by the Washington Examiner's Byron York. Good morning, Byron.
Good morning, Hugh.
The president is speaking as we speak in India, having a press conference. The second question he was asked was, are the Russians interfering with our election? And I thought to myself, and I tweeted, Byron, the press is unhinged. That story has been discredited. The briefer went beyond the briefer's brief and speculated. CNN walked it back. What is wrong with the press corps? I mean, we've got coronavirus, China crisis. He's in India. We've got Bloomberg's NDA, Weinstein's conviction. You got 1,000 things to ask him, and they're asking him about Russia.
They're going back to what they know. The intelligence community is going back to what it knows. The Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee are going back to what they know, and the press is going back to what it knows. You're absolutely right. This was totally discredited. It started on February 13th. There was a briefing arranged by Chairman Adam Schiff, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and the impeachment leader has this briefing, and the Intel Committee talks about Russian efforts to interfere in the 2020 election, which everybody believes. Nobody thinks Russia is just not going to interfere at all. But then they take it one step further, and they say they're doing it in order to reelect President Trump. And that's when Republicans start asking questions. What can you show us some evidence? Why do you say this? Give us A, B, C, and D. Why do you say this? And they could not do it, and led to a lot of skepticism on the part of Republicans. And as Republicans are leaving, they say to themselves, boy, this seemed like it was designed to leak. And sure enough, it did, and here we are.
And I do believe that as the coronavirus sweeps the globe and infects people, the Russia virus just moves through the media. And its morbidity is a lot greater than 2%. It just takes over people and turns them into Putin question zombies, and that's all they can ask. Let's go to coronavirus. David Larder, a very good reporter, just tweeted out. So the coronavirus has a 2% death rate and doesn't look to be slowing down. You may think that at 2% death rate, your chances are good. Indeed, they are. But if everyone in the world gets it, that's 156 million deaths, which is 2 times the toll of World War II. Now, in fact, I read the WHO thinks only between 40 and 70% of the world will get coronavirus, and eventually we'll get a cure, and eventually the human immune system will respond, just like 1918. But it's still a very bleak prospect. Markets in Europe have turned red again. Who knows what the day will bring on Wall Street? Is the president doing enough? Right? He's putting out tweets, which are happy talk tweets. I think that's disastrous. What do you think, Byron York?
I think the happy talk tweets are a bad idea. I mean, this is back like the movie Jaws, where the mayor wants to assure everybody that there's no problem. The swimming is fine,
Yeah.
and so everybody should just get back in the ocean because there's no problem. So I agree with you that the president should stress what his administration is doing about coronavirus, but not at the same time say everything's cool, don't worry.
In line with that, if I had a producer, they'd play, you're going to need a bigger boat, because we're going to need a bigger boat with coronavirus. And I think that bigger boat is mostly in the information area and better. I love Alex Azar. I think he's a great Secretary of Health and Human Services. He's very smart. I think Dr. Fauci is a national hero, but I don't think they've got a high enough profile, Byron, to drive the information news cycle and drive bad news out and fake news out of the space occupied by coronavirus panic.
Well, what you're saying is they need somebody with a higher profile, and who might that be? Perhaps
the vice
president.
president. I think the vice president could lead the commission, and he could get himself a group of people around. I've written that for the Post today, but I think eventually the president will wake up to this. Let me turn your formidable powers to the debate tonight. Mike Bloomberg has released 3 NDAs, so that means the first question should be what, Byron? My guess is, how many NDAs are there, Mr. Bloomberg?
Yes. Is this all of them? Why did you release 3 of them? Is this all of them? It's interesting in this debate, which, by the way, will have one additional participant, Tom Steyer, who has put a particular effort into South Carolina and is doing better in South Carolina than he is anywhere else in the country. So there was, I think, a legitimate feeling after this last debate among Democrats, which was, gosh, do you think we could have maybe focused a little more on President Trump as opposed to Bloomberg? So I'll be interested to see what they do as far as Bloomberg is concerned, because he remains the candidate with the unlimited bankroll, who's trying to just kill them all with money.
Let me play for you a little Joe Biden from yesterday in South Carolina. I think this matters. David Drucker, your colleague at the Examiner, doesn't so much. Cut number 13.
And folks, one of the things I'm proudest of is getting passed, getting moved, getting control of the Paris Climate Accord. I'm the guy that came back after meeting with Deng Xiaoping and making the case that I believe China.
All right, stop right there. Deng Xiaoping was dead for more than 2 decades when the Paris Climate Accords were signed. I know it's just another Joe Biden flub, but I put it to David, it's clearly not just another Joe Biden flub. He is different. He's lost a step, not like Elizabeth Warren, not like Bernie Sanders, not like Donald Trump. It's not inevitable, but Joe Biden has lost a step, Byron. Why won't people own that?
Well, I think they do own it privately. I mean, everybody owns it privately. There was kind of an amazing moment at the last debate when the moderator was just being, I think, much too hard on Amy Klobuchar for having forgotten the name of the Mexican president, where Biden basically jumped in and said, well, I've been forgetting the names of Mexican presidents for longer than anybody here has been alive.
Yeah.
So look, everything he does, every gaffe he makes, even though he was a gaffe machine in his prime, every gaffe he makes points to this idea that he has lost a step and that he lives in the past. He had a long, long career in the Senate, followed by 8 years as vice president. If you go to his event, he has surrogates with him like Chris Dodd and John Kerry, people who are also from the past of the United States Senate. And that's something that, amazingly enough, does not affect Bernie Sanders, who is the same age, actually a little older, who attracts just legions of really, really young voters. Now, we're starting to see some of that with Bernie as the media finally looks at what he was doing, his visits to the Soviet Union, to Havana, to Nicaragua, basically any place where there was some sort of anti-American dictator. Bernie liked to visit and say how great their educational programs were. But so far, Bernie has been able to attract this very young audience where Biden attracts older voters who nevertheless have some doubts about whether he has indeed lost that step.
Bernie attracted every demographic in Nevada. It will be interesting on Saturday to see what happens in South Carolina. But the buzz inside the Beltway, where I've been back this week, Byron, is that Joe Biden made up a story about being arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela. I missed it entirely, and that he had dodged a bullet because no one noticed it. Did anyone notice it? Did he make up a story about being arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela? That's just weird.
It appears that he did, and because he wrote a memoir, and he discussed his South African trip in the memoir and never mentioned it. What was interesting is I was on Fox News special coverage of the Nevada results on Saturday, and Brett Baier interviewed John Garamendi, the Democratic congressman.
And former Deputy Secretary of the Interior, a longtime player in California politics. Yep.
Who asked, and who's a supporter of Biden, and Brett asked him, well, what about this story? And Garamendi's response was, well, aren't we all storytellers? Haven't we all told a lot of I'm serious. You can look it up. Haven't we all told lots of stories? I mean, it was not a response that would gather a lot of confidence. At that time, the story was very new. I mean, he
You
could have
know,
said,
when I
"Well,
went and
I'm
freed
sorry, I haven't heard of that."
Solzhenitsyn,
He didn't.
Byron, when I went and got Solzhenitsyn out of jail, I didn't brag about it. So I don't know why. Of course, we're all storytellers. I just think that we ought to be more modest in our stories so that we tell. Byron York, follow him on Twitter at Byron York. Thank you, my friend, the Washington Examiner's finest. See him on Fox News as well. Come right back.